If you're using a phone, inshallah. Now I was asking كيف انا روح يضحك والله شو الحكي هذا روح عيب تقول هيك. So I was asked the question of how long it will take us roughly. So I have zero idea of how long it would take me to finish, just until at least we do 3 or 4 sessions, inshallah.
So sorry, I was eager. It's not useful.
So I don't know yet. It will be clear to me, inshallah, after a number of sessions how long it will take us. I can tell you one thing though, it will not be boring. So this gun is not boring. One of the most interesting, actually intriguing sort of sites, especially with youth. I do it with youth a lot. I've done it, several times before. At least the first part, because of what the story or the surah is actually called. The surah is named after a certain story within it, and that story, of course, is the anchor story in the surah.
Sisters,
it makes, inshallah, the people are out, they'll hear that. That should be using inshallah, maybe next time, more people show up in the meeting. Now, first, before we start reciting, I will talk a little bit about Surat AlKahf, just so that we all take a bit of a understanding of when it was revealed and what was on. Now, it is a Mekki surah. It's a mid-Mekki surah period. So when we talk mid-Mekki, we're talking about the timing when Quraysh was either trying to negotiate with the Prophet ﷺ, or there was a lot of physical and financial and social oppression that was falling upon Muslims, and the people were moving out of Mecca to Habasha, and some people were actually were leaving Mecca elsewhere, running away with their religion, and the Prophet ﷺ's life was threatened, and the Muslims who had just accepted Islam or had been a Muslim for a number of years were going through a lot of difficulties. So this is basically the timing when Surat AlKahf was revealed, and is very conveniently placed in the center of the Quran, right in the middle. So if you want to find like the middle part of the Quran, you have to go a couple of pages into it. Basically, the 15th juz ends at ayah number 74 of Surat AlKahf. So Surat AlKahf is right in the middle. It's not the middle of the Quran comes in the center part of Surat AlKahf, which also gives it a certain level of importance. Now, what we know about Surat AlKahf when it comes to what the Prophet ﷺ has shared with us, there's a hadith that maybe has some level of debate on its authenticity, but it's a hadith that's been used, very commonly amongst people. من قرأ سورة الجمعة سورة الكهف في ليلة الجمعة أو يوم الجمعة كانت له نورا من مكانه إلى البيت العتيق، أو كانت له نورا فيما ما تبقى من جمعته أو من أسبوعه. Meaning, those who recite Surah Al-Kahf on the night of Jum'ah or in the day of Jum'ah, then this will be a light for him until the end of the week, or from where he is to Mecca. And there's a lot of debate on the authenticity of this hadith, and whether actually the Prophet ﷺ worded it that way, or this is the understanding of a Sahabi. We don't know for sure, but many of the scholars, or most scholars, if not all of the scholars of Islamic law, have taken this hadith and worked by it and have shared it often. And I see no harm in undertaking the blessing of reciting Surah Al-Kahf, because of the fact that it became such a widespread practice that most of the tabi'een, if not all the tabi'een, recited Surah Al-Kahf within the night of Jum'ah or the day of Jum'ah. Now, I don't know any other surah in the Quran that has anything similar. It has a similar status attached to it, meaning that there's a day of the week where you're supposed to read this surah. Meaning, there is no surah in the Quran that I am aware of that you are supposed to read at least once a week, besides maybe Surah Al-Mulk, where it is said that you should read it before you go to sleep, and there's some debate upon that as well, and maybe certain ayat and small surahs that you read after salawat. But for there to be a surah around 10 pages, which is almost half a juz', and there's a day of the week that you're supposed to read every single, which is the best day of the week, the end of the week or the beginning of the week, depending on how you look at it within the Islamic, within Islamic life or Islamic lifestyle. You could see this at the end of the week or the beginning of the week, and you're supposed to read the surah. Gives it a level of importance that is almost unparalleled by any other surah in the Quran. What else did the Prophet ﷺ say about it? We have a number of different hadith, and the narrators seem to differ a bit on the fact when they say من قرأ أول 3 آيات من سورة الكهف عصم فتنة الدجال أو من قرأ أول 10 آيات أو من قرأ آخر 10 آيات. And they kind of differ on which ayat of Surah Al-Kahf you're supposed to read that will defend you or protect you from the fitna of the end of time. right? And they kind of differ on what part of Surah Al-Kahf. That's why most scholars, Shafi'i and Hanafiya specifically, say that you just read the whole thing, because the difference of opinion. Hanabila are stuck to the last 10 ayat, and the Malikiya look at the first 10. But regardless, there's something else that is attached to the importance of Surah Al-Kahf. And again, when you look at other surahs of the Quran, you don't find these, you don't find such similarities when it comes to the importance of the surah. Now,
memorizing or reciting?
Reciting it. And of course, if you memorize it, then you're more likely to recite it, right? So, and again, the word qara'a in Arabic is a word that has multiple meanings. And sometimes it's explained as recite, and sometimes it's understood as memorize and then recite, and sometimes it's referring to the fact that people understand it as well, and comprehend and maybe reflect. So the word qara'a is a very multiple, it's a complex word that has many usages. Now, Surah Al-Kahf, in my understanding, and this is what I'm going to be explaining to you as we go through it, is a surah that talks about, has 4 stories in it. So basically it is divided into 4 sections, and then a finale, or a summary at the end. And it has an introduction at the beginning that we'll read inshallah today. What is the purpose of Surah Al-Kahf? Surah Al-Kahf, many scholars in the early age talked about the fact that it talks about different types of fitan, or different types of difficulties, or of problems that happen to people's life, but I see it to be a bit different. Wallahu a'lam, Surah Al-Kahf talks about the tools, or the components, or the elements that are needed for the human being, or the human experience, to build their civilization, for them to actually move forward, to rise above living a poor life financially, or a divided life socially, or an ignorant life when it comes intellectually, or a weak life when it comes to power. And because when you look at the 4 elements that Surah Al-Kahf talk about, when you look at the 4 stories, they're very, very important, and they're very, very specific. Surah Al-Kahf is going to talk about the intellectual issue. It's going to talk about the theology, the creed, the way of thought, the way of life, the personal choice, and what comes with that. Meaning, how it is you're going to live your life. What are the ideas you're going to base your life upon? What are you willing to do for that? Are you serious about it? Or is it just culture? Is there something that you actually stand for? Do you stand for something, or do you stand for nothing? And it's just a matter of, this is how everyone lives, so this is how I live. But if you were to break you down, or to bring you down and ask you to break down your understanding of why it is you live the way you live, or what it is that you stand for in life, or what are your fundamentals or your principles, then you may not have much to talk about. So the first spot talk about the ideas. The first thing you build anything on, a community, a society, nevertheless a civilization in the future, the idea. It's always the idea. It's always the strength of that first idea. Now the second story talks about wealth. The second element, in order for you to be able to build anything, you need money. Money is needed. We need wealth. Now that wealth will work in, and you'll find that sort of every story talks about these ideas from every single angle. You'll find it very rich. You'll talk about ideas, you'll talk about how you're supposed to use them, what good ones exist, and how you can misuse it, and how you can have a problem with using your ideas, how you can turn into a very superficial person who doesn't have many ideas, and how that can backfire. Then it talks about, in the second story, it'll talk about wealth. It'll talk about how it can be used properly, and how it can turn the opposite and become a reason for your corruption, and it could cause you to lose everything. The third element of it all is knowledge, is ilm. Ilm that is not talking about religious. You say, well, isn't that the same thing that Halaqah? No. Because Halaqah does not talk about knowledge. It talks about a stand. It talks about something different, which inshallah we're going to start explaining today. It'll make sense. The third element is knowledge. The more we know, the better we are educated, the more we are capable of actually moving forward and building. The fourth is power. The power that comes with proper organization of a society. Whether we speak politically or we speak militarily, it doesn't make a difference. Power comes from organizations within societies. You have an organized community, you have power. And that power can lead to do great things, and it can lead to do very horrible things as well. So the will talk about 4 elements. With them you build. If you want your building tools, and I think, and that is why I believe that we are supposed to read this every single week. Why? Because if at the beginning of each week, remind yourself of the elements that are needed in order for you to build, in order for you to make something great, in order for you to go from a very simple existence, a weak existence, a poor existence, a made ignorant one, to one that has a much brighter future, where there is wealth, and there is knowledge, and there is power, and there's a stand, and there is serenity and tranquility that comes with that, then these are the elements that you need. And this is how you're supposed to deal with it. Now, if you look at it, when those who said, no, Surat AlKahf talks about fitan, it works the same way. See, the same tools can be used to build. The same tools can be used to cause fitan. It's the same thing. It's a double-edged sword. You use it however you want to use it. If you misuse it, then you will cause a lot of misfortunes and a lot of tyranny and a lot of pain and agony. And if you use it properly, then you will build something that you can be proud of, something that you can stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be glad that you're a part of, and thank Him that you're actually a part of this. And that is the basic idea of Surat AlKahf. With that comes a lot of interesting and intriguing arguments that you'll find in the surah, and stories, of course, that will be attached to it. We'll begin, inshallah, by reciting the first couple of ayat, and I'll explain a few more ideas as we go along. The first story, of course, in the surah is going to be the story that the surah was called based upon, which is Al-Kahf, Qissat Ashab Al-Kahf. Now, before we begin, there is a set of nuzul that comes for this. What happened was, Quraysh had grown tired of continuously arguing with the Prophet ﷺ and losing the arguments. Every time they argued with him, every time they had a debate with him or they talked to him, they lost, and they lost bad because they didn't know anything, they were very ignorant. And the Prophet ﷺ, the ideas he brought forward were very strong. In their nature, the ideas of Islam are strong ideas. Islam was never built upon a lot of wealth or flashy titles or even flashy and decorated armies. It was based on the strength of the idea. What beat everyone who came in contact with the deen at the beginning was the strength of the ideas that existed within it. So Quraysh decided, okay, the only way we can finally or ultimately prove that Muhammad ﷺ is lying is for us to beat him in the same in what he is good at, which is intellectually and with the ideas he has. So they actually took upon themselves a conquest, and they went to Yathrib and to Najran and to different parts of Arabia, seeking out scholars of Christianity and Judaism and asking them, give us things we can go back and talk to Muhammad about, ask him questions, and he will not know how to answer, and we can prove that he doesn't know what he's talking about. So give us. So they came up with 3 questions, with 3 basic ideas that if the people told them that he will never know about this, even if he studied the Talmud, even if he's read the First Testament and the Second Testament, which he didn't do, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he couldn't read. But even if he did, if he had read these things or someone had explained it to them to him in detail, these stories don't exist in it. So we're going to give you a couple of stuff that he will not know. It's impossible. These are things only scholars talk about, right? And it exists in every faith, by the way, even in ours. Not to say that there's knowledge that is withheld from you, but there are certain things that scholars will talk about amongst themselves within scholarly groups that will not be shared with everyone, just based on the fact that it's not that beneficial. So they were given 3 questions. The first one was the question that is going to be answered by the first story in the surah, that asked them about the sleepers that did not wake, who did not awake. سَلْهُمْ عَنِ الْقَوْمِ الَّذِينَ نَامُوا ثُمَّ أَيْقَظَهُمُ اللَّهُ ثُمَّ أَمَاتَهُم. Can you ask him about those? Okay, what else? And ask him about الرجل الطواف الذي دار الأرض. Ask the person about the guy who went around the globe and he conquered most of the earth. Ask him about him. He's not going to know about it. The third question, ask him about the ruh. Ask him about the soul and see what he can say. So the Prophet ﷺ, when they came and they asked him, قال أجيبكم غدا, I will answer you tomorrow. And there's a narration, even though I don't think it's very authentic, but I will just let you know that this is what most scholars talk about. They didn't say inshallah, and then later he said inshallah. The authenticity on that narration is not very strong, and I don't think it's. I think kind of kills a lot of the importance of the surah of what it's talking about. But he said that I will answer you, and then the wahi did not come. Surat AlKahf is a living example, or it's living evidence that the prophecy of Muhammad ﷺ is true, because when they came and asked him, he told them, I would answer you tomorrow. And then for 15 days, the wahi did not come, and he couldn't answer. And Quraysh were walking around saying, فَأَرْجَفَتْ قُرَيْشْ فِي الْمَدِينَةِ. Quraysh started to talk about in the Medina that we asked Muhammad a couple of questions, and he told us he would answer us. It's been like 2 weeks now, and nothing. فَضَاقَ صَدْرُ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ. And the Prophet ﷺ became very tired and very upset, and he started feeling bad because he doesn't know. The Prophet ﷺ did not know the stories of Ahl Kahf. He doesn't have to know the story of Dhul Qarnayn. He doesn't know what to say about Ruh. Unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him the information, he does not really have anything to say. For 15 days, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Jibreel with the answers of 3 questions. 2 of the questions would be within Surat AlKahf, and one of them would be in Surat Al-Isra, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. And then the Prophet ﷺ answered them. And when he answered them with Surat AlKahf, basically he just recited to them, أَمْ حَسِبْتَ أَنَّ أَصْحَابَ الْكَهْفِ وَالرَّقِيمِ كَانُوا مِنْ آيَاتِنَا عَجَبًا. And he would go on until the end of the story, and then the people who heard the story would take it back to those whom asked the question, and those who asked the question had nothing to say. Because of how detailed the Prophet ﷺ was answering through the Quran, how detailed the Quran's answer was, and how accurate it was in every aspect. And they said, well, that's exactly what we have in our books called فَسَكَتَ الْقَوْمُ. And then everyone just kind of forgot about it. But they enjoyed the 15 days where they could spread all the time that he doesn't know. We asked him, he couldn't answer. It's been 15 days now, and they enjoyed that time. But once he answered, they kind of dissolved and just kind of disappeared for a while. Maybe took a big vacation for 2 weeks and they came back. Hopefully people will forget about it by then, which probably what happened. Now, so that's basically the premise of what Surat AlKahf is talking about. Just understand why it was revealed, what the purpose of it is. I think it's a beautiful purpose, and I think that the point of it is it falls perfectly with the idea of reciting it every week, at the beginning of every week. At the beginning of every week, remind yourself of the 4 elements that you need. You need to have the idea. You have to understand. You have to have the concept, the principle of why you're doing what you're doing and what you're willing to do for it, and how far you're actually willing to go for this idea, and what are you willing to sacrifice for it, and how much are you willing to put up with things for it. You need to work for the wealth. You need to work for the science, for the knowledge, and you need to have some level of organization and power. These are the 3 things. If you look at Islam, look at Muslims from a bigger perspective, take a bigger picture, take a step back out of everything, take a look at it. Of course, this is extremely, we need this. We need to have all 4 elements. Where do we start? This is the problem that we don't seem to know. Where do we start? If you start at the end of it, with Dhul Qarnayn, then you're making a very big. You begin with what the Quran began with. You start with Ahl al-Kahf. You start with that. You need to have the idea. You need to understand what it is you stand for. You need to understand the principles of what and these principles, you can't understand them alone. Everyone around you needs to share them with you. You have to share a common ground of fundamentals, a foundation of what it is that we stand for. And then if we have that, we start moving forward properly. Without that, nothing will happen. Nothing will happen. It's been observed too many times in history for this not to be a fact, an undisputed fact. People have come together with money, they have come together with science, they have come together with power, but without that idea, nothing is worthy. It's worth nothing. Now, where do we suffer today as Muslims? Do we suffer with money? No. Muslim countries sit on the biggest reservoir of oil that was ever found in the history. We have some of the richest countries with minerals and resources. When it comes to wealth, it's not wealth. When it comes to science now is no longer a problem. We've never been poor, or when it comes to science. The Muslim civilization has always been ahead, and today it's not hard. Science is simple. Do we have a lack of engineers and doctors and teachers in our Muslim community? not by a long shot. Is it power? Is it our lack of ability to organize? Not that either. We're capable of doing that as well. There's so many of us, and we don't live in different places. We live in one way or another all around each other. That's not the problem. The problem is the idea. We have lost track of the basic idea of what it is we stand for. We don't even know anymore. If I ask everyone to explain to me what is it that we stand for, I will get as many people here, I'll get as many different answers. We'll get 30 different answers that will differ, sometimes on fundamental issues of what it is that we need to work on, and where is it that we lack, and what is it that we have to focus on when it comes to, and this is what we're missing. And this is why Surat AlKahf is important. Because when you look at Surat AlKahf, it breaks that down in a way that almost leaves us with no excuse. If you have Surat AlKahf and you're reading it every week, then you definitely know how this is going to happen. And what is it that it requires of us. And how actually simple and easy it is. If there was just a will, I guess. Maybe that's another thing that's missing. Maybe a will to actually take on some difficult some difficult challenges. Okay, so we'll start with Surat AlKahf, inshallah. That is the premise of it. And we'll begin, inshallah, with the first ayah, and then we'll move forward. So we'll try to get as much done per day, and then I'll tell you how long this will take. It'll take a number of months. I'm not sure exactly how long it will take, but inshallah, it will not lack intriguing and very, very important concepts, inshallah, as we go. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب
الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب
ولم يجعل له عوجا.
ولم يجعل له عوجا.
So you see on the top of عوجا, you'll see a small scene. I think in most of the masahif. Do all the masahif have the scene? Some of them, I think there's a one of the ones that were written that didn't have it. But anyways, you see this scene. It's called a sakta latifa. So it's a simple stop or a pause, if you may. Now, this pause requires that if you were to read this ayah continuously with the ayah after it, and you can do that with different ayahs, you can put them, you can keep on reading, you don't have to stop at the end of an ayah if you don't want to. So if you wanted to continuously read with the ayah after it, this would say that you'd have to stop. You had to have a small pause. So you couldn't say عِوَجًا قَيِّمًا, which is the word that comes right after it. You'd have to say وَلَمْ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ عِوَجًا قَيِّمًا لِيُنْ. Now what is a pause? It's a small stop without taking breath. You just kind of pause for a second. Now if you decide to stop at the end of this ayah, what do you need to do with that scene? Nothing. If you decide to stop at the end of the ayah, it's as if the scene is not even written. The scene is only written, it's only something that you would be interested in if you had the intention to continuously recite the ayah, the first ayah with the second one, which is not really something most people do. Now the reason being, because the word iwaja means crooked, and the word qayyima means straight. And they're talking about two different things. And when you read them together, it kind of gives the illusion to the person hearing that, what is it? Is it crooked? Is it straight? Doesn't make any sense. And a lot of things in the Quran are like that. When you see a small scene, you'll see them in a couple of places. Like one of the most notorious ones that you probably all know, in Surat Al-Mutaffifin, it is كَلَّا بَلْ رَانَ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ, correct? So we don't say كَلَّا بَلْ رَانَ, because the word بَلْ رَانَ actually has a meaning in the Arabic language that does make no sense whatsoever to what, unless you know that it's a noun and then a ra. So most scholars or certain recitations have it. So of course, if you hear someone reciting it بَلْ رَانَ, there's nothing wrong with that, because other recitations don't have a problem. Other recitations, so you can read it continuously. So when I tell you the scene exists and you should stop if you have the intention of reciting continuously, the reason I'm telling you that because what we're reading in right now is called Hafs an Asim. That's the name of the recitation. Min Tariq al-Shatibiyya. That's a long little table. So that's what we're reading by. And when we read by that recitation, there's a number of laws that come with that recitation or rules that we should abide by. And then if you want to change the recitation, you'll find different rules when it comes to these small little details in the way that we're supposed to read the Quran. So that's just the reason the scene is there, in case you were wondering. Right. And if you weren't wondering, so forgive me for the last couple of seconds. We go on, inshallah. قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا من لدنه. So mil ladun. So the noon mil is not pronounced at all. So mil ladun. And if you're going to continue, mil ladunhu. And if you're going to continue. ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا حسنا.
وبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا حسنا.
ماكثين فيه أبدا.
ماكثين فيه أبدا.
Alright, so let's just explain those first before we move on. Alright. One of the very few surahs in the Quran that begin with Alhamdulillah. Now, what other surahs begin with Alhamdulillah in the Quran? Fatiha, Hamza, Wahid. Give me one. Al-Fatiha. What else?
Fatir.
Fatir. Come on. Saba. What else? An'am. Good. You have more? Al-Kahf, obviously. The easiest of all is Al-Kahf because that's the one that we're actually reading. Yeah, so those are the surahs that begin with Hamd, that begin with praising to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's like, again, I've said this a couple of times before. whenever you find the beginning of the surahs to be similar, especially when it comes to the miraculous letters like Alif Lam Mim or Sad or Qaf, it's like a coding at the beginning. It tells you that these surahs that have the similar beginnings have similar themes or similar ideas, and they do. When you look at all 5 surahs, they all do. Maybe we'll talk about that maybe in the next slide. But I'll talk about that inshallah next halaqah or the halaqah after that. We'll talk about why they're similar. But Surat AlKahf begins with praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whenever the surah begins with praising, it means that what's in it is extra special. So yes, everything in the Quran is miraculous, and everything in the Quran is glorious and beneficial. But whenever the surah starts with Hamdu, then you know what's in here is extra special. Just like Surah Al-Fatiha, extremely special. It's like the surah, you cannot read any other surah without Surah Al-Fatiha. It's like you're not allowed in Salah to say a word of Quran until you read Fatiha first. Everything's understood under the umbrella of Surah Al-Fatiha. So you can understand the Quran if you want, but under the umbrella of this big one here, Fatiha, it kind of paves the way for how you're going to understand the rest of the Quran. And Surah Al-Kahf is no exception to the rule, because like I told you, it's in the middle of the Quran. It's something we read every single week. It has a very, very strong theme to it. It's telling us, okay, this is how you're going to make your progress. This is how you're going to build. If 3 Muslims gather on any part of the earth, they build a small masjid, and they come together and they're given the elements of how to build. And every week they can read the surah that reminds them of what it is they need to start obtaining so they can build their society and build their community and build their civilization and strengthen themselves and come to a point where they're capable. Because what is the point of a weak community? What good will a divided and poor and ignorant society do? How are you going to convince anyone to be a Muslim if when they take a moment and say, okay, everything you're saying is fine, but show me some example of how that works? You're giving, because when you can bring Islam, you don't bring a few ideas. You don't say, okay, just say La ilaha illallah. Just say it, and then you're bringing a comprehensive way of life. You say, here's how to live. Here's how you do it. This is the right way. Like, oh, that's how we're supposed to do it. Okay, show me an example of people who did it, so I can, see it. And then you have nothing. Then what are you doing really? If you have no example, if you can't give them an example of any group of people anywhere that is impressive, because the people are impressed by those who take a stand. Those who have principles, you're impressed by a person with principles. Well, even if you hate his principles, you respect it. Like, you know what, this guy, he stands for what he believes in. I think what he believes in is garbage, but he stands for it. Like, I have to respect that. He's willing to put his life on the line for it. He's willing to do everything in his power to support it. That's something that is admirable. People are impressed by wealth. If you have a lot of money, it impresses people. If you have knowledge, it impresses people. If you have power, it impresses people. If you have them all, right? That's why so many of our sons and daughters aren't that happy. Because you're so happy you're a Muslim, but your kid's like, what? Based on what? Why should I be so happy? I don't see the Muslims don't know how to dunk that well, right? So Muslims don't seem to be scoring so many goals. The stuff that impressed people, we're not doing it anymore. We don't have it. So a lot of Muslims, and this is the case all through history. Well, all through history, it's been very, very simple. People gravitate towards a stronger civilization. It's always has been. When the Muslims were, it was cool to know Arabic. If you were to study, they call it the Dark Ages, but we call it the Golden Ages. The Dark Ages, it was considered a sign of high intellect if you could speak Arabic. If you understood Arabic, that means, because you could read the books that none of us. You have access to stuff. Just like today, if you go back to our countries and you have lugha, and the lugha you can speak English. Oh my, you already have a head start in life because you can do so much. That's how it's always been. This is not something that is specific to our civilization or others. It's the same thing. So the concept of Surat AlKahf is wherever you are, make sure this is what you're doing. Make sure you are building this. Make sure. But okay, so you want me to get the money, the wealth, the knowledge, and the power? No. First of all, you have to have the idea. First of all, you need to understand what you stand for. If you don't have what you stand for, it's all waste. It's all waste. It means nothing. It brings nothing but corruption and pain and destruction. It just doesn't work out. You have to have the idea first. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with the idea. We are blessed with the proper idea. We know what it is we stand for. Do we? Maybe we don't even know that anymore. But it's there. It's still here. You can still clarify it. You can still crystallize it if it's foggy or if it's not clear. And then when you have it, then these are the three elements you need with it. Once you have the idea and you're willing to stand for it, you're willing to live for it, you're willing to die for it if needed. You're going to put everything you've got for it. Okay, these are you need to bring some. You need to bring wealth and knowledge and power, and then people will come to Islam. Right? Do you want the example of it? Look at the effectiveness of his da'wah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in Mecca, and then the effectiveness of his da'wah when he was in Medina. No, there's no comparison. 13 years, maybe 500 people. Maybe when you study the books of Seerah, the numbers don't even. I'm being generous. 500 people. Wallahi, not even 500. 13 years of Mecca, and then the last 2 years of Medina, the numbers skyrocketed. Like the munhana or the graph looks like this, and then just goes up insanely. Why? Because at the end of his time in Medina, the Prophet ﷺ had accumulated everything. Now the idea was clear to everyone, and you had people who believed in it and were willing to live and die for it. Wealth was increasing. Knowledge existed. You were talking about people who were intellectuals of their time. They were not ignorant in comparison to everyone around them. And there was proper organization.
What were the opposing belief systems at the time?
Polytheism. So polytheism was the biggest one. And that's very hard to narrow down. Because polytheism has poly in its name. So there's all these different types of... So the trivial mentality that exists amongst people, and the different idols that they actually worshipped, and all the different cultural. So every tribe had its own cultural, code that they lived by anyway. So it's very, very hard to kind of narrow it down. There are a number of fundamentals that Islam came against that are clear, but besides that, it's very difficult. But the thing is that way of life had existed for over a millennium. People had been living like that for a very long time. Changing it did not make much sense to any of them, because they could track back their polytheist ancestors going back to their 26th grandfather. Like, what, you were going to change it? And they actually asked the Prophet ﷺ at a certain point, what's your lineage, Ya Muhammad? Count them back. Muhammad ibn Abdullah. Well, your grandfather was a polytheist. Are you better than your own grandfather? And they thought that they actually won the argument when they did that. They thought, oh, we got it. Now we have a question we can ask. He cannot answer this one. Who's better, you or your grandfather? So what he did, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, no, he didn't answer. He just didn't answer. And they were running after him like, no, you have to answer this. No, I don't. I plead the fifth. And he did not answer the question, because the question is set improperly anyway. Right? It's not even, the premise for it is not proper. The framework is not ready yet. It's normal. You can know more than people. I might be better than my grandfather, but right now I know more than he ever did. I know more. Doesn't make me better. Knowledge does not make you better. Can we all agree to that? Knowledge does not make you a better person. It gives you potential to achieve more, maybe be better, but it doesn't make you better. Just because you know more doesn't mean anything. I today have more access to Islamic knowledge than Imam al-Bukhari did. I may know more things than he did, but I'm not better. Wallahi, I'm not even good enough to be his shoe. But that doesn't mean I can't know more than him. It's a different thing. It's not the same thing. Knowledge and quality of the human being aren't the same thing. We were supposed to know better. Shame on me and you if we don't know more than they did. That means we're not continuing their legacy. Their legacy was a legacy of knowledge. We're supposed to know more. We're supposed to move forward with knowledge. Now, maybe with taqwa, maybe with quality. Maybe we don't do as well. Maybe because it's hard to be a pioneer in something that already started a long time ago. We can't go back and stand on the Jabal of Uhud and stand by the Prophet. And that's done. Unless you have a time machine to take me back, we have no access to that. It's done. But I can know more and try, but I'm not going to be better. I think that's an important distinction that we need to learn. And that's why Surat AlKahf is so important. It's like learn. And we're going to see the example of Musa, who thought for a moment, but then he was taught that knowledge is a different thing. Now you can always learn more. There's always people who know more. Always go to them. Always learn. Increase your knowledge, because that helps you build. Alright. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said at the beginning of this beautiful surah, Alhamdulillah, praise be to Allah. The one who descended upon his servant, Abdi, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Al-Kitab, the book. The surah starts with reminding you of the value of the Quran. The first thing, because the Quran is the book that brought this guidance forward. Quran is the book that was sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that we could build our characters and build our communities and build something that is sustainable and that has khayr in it for itself and khayr in it for everything around it. So praise be to Allah, the one who sent down and descended this book upon his servant. وَلَمْ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ عِوَجًا, and did not have within it, or let be within it. يَجْعَل is a very fluid word in the Arabic language. It has different meanings depending on the sentence that it exists within. So يَجْعَل لَهُ عِوَجًا means that the word عِوَجًا means crookedness or lack of clarity within. So i'wijaj means that it's crooked, it's going different directions. Also means it has lack of clarity, because once the road goes right, you can no longer see the end of it. Right? So you can't see the end of things anymore. So i'wijaj also has that idea that he descended the book on his servant, praise be to him, and he did not let be within it any crookedness. He made sure that what you're going to learn from it is going to give you a straight path, that is going to give you a straight vision of where you're going. We don't lack the ability to see where it is we're headed. That we don't lack that. Maybe we lack the ability to lift our heads and look, but we don't lack the actual path itself. Qayyima is description of the book. So when he said, Alhamdulillah, الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب, al-kitaba has another description. Description is qayyima. The first description that there is no crookedness within it. You don't treat people with two ways. You don't have two faces. Right? We don't see ourselves in one eye with one ability to view and then view people differently. We don't have standards for others and standards for ourselves. Our standards are one for everyone. We treat people the exact way we expect to be treated by them. And the way we treat them is the way that we will accept treatment from them. As simple as that. That's why there's no crookedness in it. It's very straight and clear. Qayyima has two meanings. It has the concept of straightness in it, and also has the concept of value. So anything qayyim is something that is valuable, has a lot of value in it. So qayyima, and I like to look at it from the concept of it being extremely valuable, because the Quran is very rarely redundant, does not repeat the concept twice. So it talked about لَمْ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ عِوَجًا. It does not lack straightness. It is very straight. There's no crookedness within it. Not in the way that it presents its ideas, nor in the result of those who practice its ideas. قَيِّمًا, it is very valuable. مِنْ لَدُنْهُ. لِيُنْذِرَ بَأْسًا شَدِيدًا. With it, inzar is warning. Basically, the word inzar is warning, and the word tabshir is giving good news. Now, there's a one-word translation for inzar in English, but there's not one word for tabshir. So, لِيُنْذِرَ بَأْسًا شَدِيدًا. Ba'san means difficulty. Shadidan, extreme difficulty. So this book is very valuable, and it's very straight, and it has no crookedness within it. And it is here to warn extreme difficulty. لِيُنْذِرَ بَأْسًا شَدِيدًا. It's going to warn extreme difficulty. مِنْ لَدُنْهُ, from him, or from the faith itself. So the word ladunhu, min ladun, it's a phrase in Arabic, and it means from a certain party, or from a certain source, coming from a certain source. So when he said min ladunhu, so the ha here is going him, from him. Who's him? Is him here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself? Is him here the Quran itself? Or is him here the faith? We're not sure. So when you go and you study, you look at any tafsir, you will find that the scholars have talked about it going back to different things. I believe, Wallahu a'lam, min ladunhu ay min ladunillah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning this book has no crookedness within it. And it's extremely valuable. And it is here to warn extreme difficulty from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to come. And the word ba'san, when you think about it, is it used in the Quran as punishment? If you go back, if you study the rest of the Quran, is it used for punishment? Often. No, as in punishment of the Day of Judgment. I'm talking about punishment that will happen in the Akhirah. Very rarely is the word ba's ever used as a word to describe punishment in the hereafter. The word ba's and ba'sa, right, and ba'is, all exist in the Quran talking about difficulties in this life, not in the hereafter. So the word ba's, whenever you see it, it means difficulty. It could easily mean difficulties that will happen Yawm al-Qiyamah, referring to punishment that will fall upon those who refuse to believe in him or to follow his word. But the word ba's more commonly is referring to difficulties in this life. And this falls under the theme of the surah much better. You see, when you don't take the way of the Quran, when you don't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and accept his word, the first difficulties you're going to face are the difficulties in this life. Forget about what's coming later. That's going to be its own problem. That's going to have its own story. We'll speak about that later. The first difficulty you end up facing when you say, I don't want to take the Quran, I'm not taking the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or refuse the guidance in it, is the difficulties that will face you in this life. And this is, I believe, Allahu A'lam, this is the thing that we don't seem to understand properly, and we're not communicating properly to our own children and to our youth. The Quran, when you're taking what's in it, when you're accepting the rulings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're accepting the fundamental principles that exist in the Quran, when you're living by it, the ease that you are getting is not an ease of Yawm al-Qiyamah only, it's an ease of this life as well. You are dodging the difficulties of this life first. I know maybe the rules that you are following don't seem to be so easy, but the result of following these seemingly not easy rules are going to bring you ease in this life first, meaning you will find ease here, before Yawm al-Qiyamah. And that's the importance of the wording that the Quran is using. لِيُنذِرَ, to warn you, بَأْسًا شَدِيدًا, extreme difficulty here, مِن لَدُنْهُ, that will come from him subhanahu wa ta'ala. In this life, the difficulty will be found in this life first. وَيُبَشِّرَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, the other function of the Quran. وَيُبَشِّرَ, to give the good news, الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, for the mu'mins, for the believers. الَّذِينَ يَعْمَلُونَ الصَّالِحَاتِ, the ones who do what it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has required them to do. And I always explain it like that, and I hope you can memorize the word salihat within that manner. Whenever you hear the word يَعْمَلُونَ الصَّالِحَات, do not think he does good deeds. Kind of get rid of that. Just delete it. And then add something, put something different. يَعْمَلُونَ الصَّالِحَات means they do what it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them to do in the first place. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala create you? Why are you here? What purpose do you serve? Everything that you're going to answer, I am here to do this and this, those are salihat. Some of those things will be rituals. Some of them will be actual acts of worship, like salah, siyam, zakat, hajj. And others will be different things that include building societies and building communities and strengthening groups. Other things will be like that, and those are also salihat. In some cases, those salihat are better than other salihat because they're needed more, because there's a stronger necessity for them. People may not need your prayer and your siyam as much as they need other functions that you have. Not to belittle rituals in any form, but I think that's something we need to think about. وَيُبَشِّرَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ الَّذِينَ يَعْمَلُونَ الصَّالِحَاتِ, and it will give the good news to the believers who will do the deeds that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them to do in the first place. أَنَّ لَهُمْ أَجْرًا حَسَنًا, that they have awaiting for them a perfected reward. And the word hasan comes from the concept of ihsan, which is excellence or perfection or something. So ajran hasana means a reward that is being perfected, that has the concept of excellence within it, not a good reward. I know that you may find some translations that say good. No, hasan means good maybe in the common language of Arabs. Like if Arabs today were to say hasan, maybe that's what they mean, good. But in the actual meaning of go back to the linguistics of what it means, no. Husn, qubh means something that has excellence, that has inner beauty. أَنَّ لَهُمْ أَجْرًا حَسَنًا, that they will find within it, or what is awaiting them is perfected and beautiful. Reward, مَاكِثِينَ فِيهِ أَبَدًا, they will stay within that reward for eternity. Al-mukth is to stay within something or stick with something. So they will stay with it, they'll be stuck with this perfected reward, abada, for all eternity, forever and ever. We recite the ayah. وَيُنذِرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ وَلَدًا,
وينذر الذين قالوا اتخذ الله ولدا
مَا لَهُم بِهِ مِنْ عِلْمٍ وَلَا لِآبَائِهِمْ,
ما لهم به من علم ولا لآبائهم
كبرت كلمة تخرج من أفواههم
كبرت كلمة تخرج من أفواههم
إن يقولون إلا كذبا
إن يقولون إلا كذبا
وينذر الذين قالوا اتخذ الله ولدا. Now he already said the word وينذر. If you look at ayah number 2 at the beginning of it, قيما لينذر. He's already given a warning. So why would he give a second warning? A second warning is only needed or established in the surah twice in a row, and if the second one is more specific or has a specific reason. So what's the specific reason for the second one? Because the first one was quite general, to warn those, to warn of severe difficulty. If anyone who decides this is not something I'm going to accept, anyone who decides that they do not accept the straightness of the Quran and the value of the Quran and the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descended this book upon His servant, then he will find extreme difficulty. And then وَيُنذِرَ, and specifically to warn الَّذِينَ قَالُوا, the ones who said اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ وَلَدًا, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen a son for himself, or has a son, or has a child. The word walad does not necessarily mean son, it means a child, whether regardless of gender. Why that specifically? Well, it's a symbol. It's always pay attention to certain symbolism that exists in the Quran. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about that, He's not just talking about the fact that they said, oh, he has a child, and that He's offended somehow by that. No. It's a way of thought. It's a mentality that comes with it. When you say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a child, what you're saying really is that He is less God than He actually is, and He's more human. You're accepting, or you're suggesting that just like you and I, He has whims, He has desires, He is created from substances that can mate with other substances and then create something that is similar to it. So that whole mentality, so when someone says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a child, what they're actually saying is a whole different thing. The concept abstractly is not the issue. The issue for Christians and for Jews and for other faiths that see deities in that form is the actual idea behind it. See, if you say that God is capable, or God will recreate or reproduce, then you are drawing parallels or extreme parallels from the deity, from God, to the human being. Now we reproduce, and that is not something that is an extra. Something that we take pride in. We enjoy it, but it's not about it.
It's not a mystery either. We can observe it happening.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
So that removes the mystery of it.
One of the reasons of reproduction is the fact that we die. We don't exist forever. Another reason is that we're weak, and we require in our lives more power and those to stand by us. The concept of reproduction coming within life itself and evolving as a part of this whole way of existence is not something that is superior. Rather, it comes from a need. So when you say that God has a child, you are referring to the deity himself to being something more similar to a creation. What sense? In a certain sense of the matter. You're also saying that God himself can be created or will have a beginning. You see, when you say that if God has a son or has a child, then what is that child? Is that child a God as well, or it is not? If it is, and you say yes, well then that God is just existed today, meaning that God that you're talking about is a God that is contained within space and contained within time, because the concept of time has now been subjected to it, and he's a part of it. So when they say it's not just the fact that it's not that God is offended just by the word. No, there's a whole mentality that's a problem. Your view, your vision, your understanding, your comprehension of God is totally off. You don't understand. No. Having a child, having a kid, is bringing God from being God to something similar to human, and that's something comforting for us. We're not happy with what we've got. This is the bottom line. As humans, we're just not happy with what we got. We want superpowers. That's why we enjoy the X-Men and everything, and Superman, and we enjoy it because we want to be more. We're not happy with the fact that we can see, we can listen, we can think, we can comprehend, we can. These abilities we've got bored with. We want more. We want to fly. We want to be able to have X-ray vision. We want to be able to punch something and send it to the other part of the galaxy. We're not happy with what we are. So either we try to strengthen ourselves, and we've tried that for many centuries, and we haven't gotten that far so far. This is as good as we get. We can get into a plane and get into a car, but we haven't been able to do anything about our actual existence. We're just the same way we were, thousands of years ago, as far as our actual abilities as human beings. So what you can also do is you can also bring God down, right? If I can't beat you, maybe get you to fall down. That way, my mediocrity won't be as clear, specifically if you don't make it where you were going to make it. The saying, وَيُنذِرَ الَّذِينَ, and to warn those who say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen a child or has a child. What does that mean? Oh, it's a whole mentality that as Muslims we don't accept. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created time and space. He is beyond it. He has created life in the form that it is for it to reproduce. To try and bring God subhanahu wa ta'ala, bring Allah, and draw parallels to our own lives and make him more similar to us and put him under the laws that we are that govern us and govern our existence is just another attempt from the human being to be more godly, to be more godlike than he actually is, and to refuse the status of servancy that we have, or service to God that we actually have, which is, all the beauty of being a Muslim is submission and accepting that we're servants to God, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala properly, all the perks of being the servant to the most great exist. He will strengthen you, he will offer you, and he will give you everything, but you have to accept that he is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you can't keep on trying to throw labels that make it more sensible to you. No, not at all. Wallahi, almost every faith. I have yet to come by a faith that at one part during its development, evolution, did not suggest that God had a child. Almost every single faith, going from to start from Japan and come west historically, you'll find almost every faith at one time or the other has either decided that God had reproduced, or that he had ancestors, or there's many of them. So it's one of those things. So in the Quran, it kind of looks at polytheism and the concept of God having children at the same way, because they have the same idea. Yes.
The mainstream of Jews, they still believe in one God.
In the mainstream of Jews, but if you go back in their history a bit, that wasn't the case. They had seen at a number of different points, because there's not. When you say mainstream, that doesn't work, because there's no mainstream Judaism. They're actually a very small group, and there's over 40 different subgroups within them. So there's no mainstream Judaism. Like, there's actually at least 40 different subgroups within there. So 40 different sects that exist within Judaism. And the number of Jews around the world is actually not that high. Like up to 20 million maybe today. That's even probably being very generous with the numbers. So the number of people, the number of groups that they know. Yes, there are groups that are Unitarians, just like the Christians. Within Christianity, there are Unitarians. I mean, those who don't believe that Isa was ever anything more than a prophet or a messenger, and they stick to that. So there are, but I'm talking about most faiths around the world have had at one point or another within their development as a faith those who have claimed God has a son, and Muslims are not an exception to that rule. Within Islamic sects, you will find certain, but because of the clarity of who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is within Islam, it was quickly to be disowned and moved out of the faith. So they're no longer part of the Islamic group of people, because once you say, it's because of some mentality. It's how you view Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to begin with. Yes.
Have you ever met a Jew that said, that had a belief like Rajeh Allah?
No, see, Jews today don't. It's something more historic. So you have to go study. You have to study a bit more history here. There are two sects today that do believe in the fact that God has a son. They don't use the name Rajeh, but they have other names. Again, when it comes to studying Judaism, there's a lot of different sects. So it's very hard to know who you're talking to, because we don't really know. Maybe we do that at a different time. To talk about the different divisions and types of beliefs within that.
I met a Jewish fellow who explained it to me, and from his point of view, he called himself a Messianic Jew.
Yes.
Who believed that Jesus was there before God
Yes.
existed.
Yeah. So Messianic. Yeah. So there's a lot of different. It's way more complicated than we unfortunately do to other faiths what we don't like them doing to us. And this may be another example of maybe treating. You want to be treated in a certain way, well, don't do what you don't want people doing to you. You don't like non-Muslims looking at every Muslim as being, okay, this is everything, and then you're stuck with a bunch of crazy people, cutting heads off and doing. You don't want to be, okay, well, don't do the same thing to a lot of other faiths, because within Judaism, within Christianity, there's a lot of different sects, and different sects have different ideas, different theologies, different creeds, and they practice differently. And we just maybe need to educate ourselves a bit more on issues like that, and not just the two basic, not just the Abrahamic faiths, even when it comes to Hinduism and Buddhism and other faiths that exist within the China and Japan that we don't even know the names of properly. I'm not even sure I know how to pronounce them properly, so I don't. But you can read about what it is that they have, and the more we learn, the more capable we are to actually communicate properly. But I'll tell you this: that almost every faith has had within its development groups of people who have looked at God within that eye, and I can always feel that it's a movement of the human race just wanting to be more, or trying to bring God closer, trying to find some way to be. He is Allah. He is beyond anything you can fathom. He is beyond your ability to comprehend. He is not governed by the same laws that govern our own existence. Accepting that is the biggest part of being a Muslim. You accept it, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beyond that. He is beyond. And if He is not, to be honest, there's no point of you worshipping Him at all. If you're going to say that the God you're worshipping is closer to man than what the Quran is talking about, He has worldly whims and worldly desires and worldly attributes, then why are you worshipping Him? I've got this question. Maybe I'll tell you something to think about. Just take this as some food of your thought. When we talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knowing all, right? And that sometimes people struggle with that. I've talked about this before a number of times. We talk about qadr or destiny, or the issue of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being omniscient and knowing everything that happened and is going to happen. And people have difficulty dealing with that. Well, how does He know what I'm going to do if He hasn't made me do it? Because we still think Allah knows things the way we know it. We know things are going to happen based on repetition and based on previous programming. That's how we know what's going to happen in the future. That's not how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows how it's going to happen in the future. He has a different way of knowing because He is God. You still have the choice, your freedom of choice, and yet He knows. But here's the question. Would you worship a God who didn't? Would you worship God if He didn't? Think about it for a moment. If He doesn't know what's going to happen next, then even if it's the smallest percentage, there's still some percentage there that He could be surprised. Right? Because He doesn't know what's happening next, and you could surprise Him. And if you can surprise Him, then you just may beat Him. It's as simple as that. The logic that we have is very simple. If I can surprise you, then there's a small percentage that I may be able to beat you. Because you know what's happening next. Would you worship a God that could be beaten by me and you? We don't even sustain our own existence. We don't even contribute to our own existence. Your contribution to your son's existence is ridiculous. There's nothing. We don't do much. It's very simple. So how is it that so when it talks about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it looks at Him from a certain mentality, understanding who the deity is subhanahu wa ta'ala, accepting that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about those who don't accept it in symbol. He doesn't see, I explain this for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. He doesn't do that every time in the Quran. He just gives a symbol. Either talks about those who have shuraka, have associates with Him, meaning believing there's more than one God. Again, that destroys the whole concept of God all over. Or it's saying that God has children, destroying the concept of God again. So He talks about Ulundu is here as well to warn those who believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has children or understand God in a way that takes away who He is and takes away your ability to believe in Him properly and to actually offer your life for Him in the terms of living. Now, the ayah after that makes it a bit more clear. So if you spent a bit talking about that, forgive me. Those who say Allah has children or believe in polytheism or have any, they have no knowledge of this. I mean, they don't base this on knowledge. They have no knowledge of this whatsoever. They have no way to prove this at all. Nor did their ancestors, nor did their forefathers. They had no way to prove this. It is just a foreign idea. It's a foreign idea that came from the need of human beings to be more, or to feel that they could be more than what they actually were. Kaburat kalimat. Kaburat means it is great, not in a good way though. I mean, this is a big deal. Kaburat kalimatan. This word that they're saying, when they say He has children or He has associates or anything they say, to try and break down Allah or to bring down God from being God to being something much simpler than God. And then having kaburat kalimatan. This is a great word in a bad way. This is a word of severe consequences. It's very similar to when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks in Surat An-Nur about when people spoke of Aisha. وَتَحْسَبُونَهُ هَيِّنًا. And you think when you're speaking of Aisha in that way, and you're saying things, وَتَحْسَبُونَهُ هَيِّنًا. You think it's simple. وَهُوَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ عَظِيمٌ. But it's a great deal عند Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to say something you don't know. Whether you say it about a human being or you say it about God Himself. How do you know this? Based on what? Based on what are you bringing God down? and trying to make him similar to you as a person, or making yourself similar to him. Like I said, either you try to be stronger or make him weaker. Either way, you close the gap a bit more, and you feel better. كبرت كلمة تخرج من أفواههم. The word that they're saying that is coming, تخرج, coming out, من أفواههم, from their mouths, of a great deal, the words that are coming out of their mouths. كبرت كلمة إن يقولون إلا كذبا. All they are saying are lies. They are saying nothing but lies. Everything they say about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that does not come from the Quran, that is not explaining the nature of who He is subhanahu wa ta'ala, is a lie. It's not true. إن يقولون إلا كذبا. This is the introduction, a couple of ayat of introduction of Surah AlKahf. There's another part of that introduction. We have time. We're good. Okay, let's read the two more ayat. فلعلك باخع نفسك على آثارهم
فلعلك باخع نفسك على آثارهم
إن لم يؤمنوا بهذا الحديث أسفا
إن لم يؤمنوا بهذا الحديث أسفا
إنا جعلنا ما على الأرض زينة لها
إنا جعلنا ما على الأرض زينة لها
لنبلوهم أيهم أحسن عملا
لنبلوهم أيهم أحسن عملا
إنا لجاعلون ما عليها صعيدا جرزا
وإنا لجاعلون ما علينا صعيدا جرزا.
The surah at the beginning of it will establish a number of ideas, and before it goes into the stories that will talk about how we build communities, how we build societies, how we start civilizations. What is it that before it goes into that, before it starts talking about it, it will establish a number of ideas in the introduction. It will establish the way of life, or the guidance that the Quran brings, and it talks about the type of guidance that the Quran has. It will establish the nature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then it will establish what it is that we're supposed to do. Allah. So it will establish for us the fact that the Quran brings forward a straight and valuable way of life. It'll talk about the nature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It'll talk about, this introduction, what it is that we need to do, and what the mission is, which is the last couple of ayats. فَلَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ. Bakhia means for you to attempt to kill yourself. That's what the word bakha'a means, trying to actually end your own life. فَلَعَلَّكَ is speaking to the Prophet ﷺ. So is it, Ya Muhammad, that you're going to try to end your own life asafa? Now the word asafa means, the reason being that you are sorry or sad that someone made a mistake. So let me give you this, explain this. If you have a son, and your son makes a number of different mistakes, and you try to make it very clear to your son or your daughter, or anyone before, that this is what you're doing is wrong, and you can do it better, and you should be doing it better. And you try and do everything you can, but they don't want to. They don't want to listen. So what are you going to do? فَلَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ. Or you're gonna kill yourself in sorrow. You're gonna kill yourself in depression and being unhappy and just completely unfulfilled because of the fact. No, you do yourself. You do your thing, and then khalas. The Prophet ﷺ, he wanted the people of Quraysh to believe so badly that he would get very, very upset when they wouldn't listen. Extremely upset. And the Quran would come in this is one place and another place in Surah Al-Shu'ara. But you're going to just starve yourself to death. You're going to work yourself to death. That's what you're going to do, Ya Muhammad. فَلَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ عَلَى آثَارِهِمْ. على آثارهم, mean continuously walking behind them. على آثارهم, following them, trying to get them to become Muslims. They walk away, and you're على آثارهم, you're just following them, trying to get them back. إِن لَمْ يُؤْمِنُوا بِهَذَا الْحَدِيثِ, because they will not believe in this way of life, or in what it is that we have spent. Hadith means this way. The word hadith means sayings, actions, and thoughts. So this way of life. Asafa, in sorrow over them. Is that what you're going to do? No, don't do that, Ya Rasulullah. As important as it is for us to do da'wah and to teach, but don't do that much. Don't compromise your own integrity as a person. Don't compromise your own happiness. And don't try to involve yourself in something that you don't have the ability to involve yourself in. We can't control what people want to do. We can barely control what we want to do. Do your best. And then, if you're not tabkha nafsak. Don't. In sorrow. Yes, exactly. You can only do so much. At the end, you can only do so much. Now, to explain that point, the two ayat after it say the following. Inna ja'alna. ما على الأرض زينة لها. We have made and put upon this earth everything that is on it. زينة لها, adornments. And the word adornments mean everything that's there. The happiness, the sorrow, the pain, the food, the drink, the orientations, the feelings, the experiences, everything. That is what earth is and everything on earth. And everything that you experience on earth. We have made it on earth zina. Just adornments, just a part of a plan. زينة لها. لنبلوهم. So that we can test them. أيهم أحسن عملا. Which of them will behave the best? أحسن عملا, have the best or more perfected or more excellent deeds or excellent actions. That's all it is. All this is just an earth with a lot of adornments on it. They could have not been there easily. It could have just been another planet just circling deadly, lifelessly around. But there's some things on it here. And it's like little adventures for all of us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing, all He's doing subhanahu wa ta'ala is just seeing, how are you going to behave? What way of life are you going to choose? Which of us is going to have the most perfected and the best way of acting? وَإِنَّا لَجَاعِلُونَ مَا عَلَيْهِ. And indeed, we will make everything that is on it right now, all the adornments you see, صَعِيدًا جُرُزًا. Juruz means empty. And Sa'id means something that had something on it and now is empty. Meaning it'll all be destroyed. Sa'id and Juruza. Dead and empty earth. So Juruz means it's dead. And Sa'id means empty after being full. So look at the earth today. Everything on it, adornments that you and I can go through our experiences. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will judge us based on who does the best deeds, who has the most perfected actions. And then after that, this earth that was once full and fruitful will become dead and empty. It was once alive, fruitful, now be over. And as simple as it began, as simple as it all started, it will all end. It will be done. So do not destroy your own existence. Don't compromise your happiness. Don't compromise your ability to live properly, to function within your life. Do your part. Do your part. And then let things happen the way they're going to happen. And let people make the choices they're going to make, as long as you understand your point. This is the introduction of Surat AlKahf. We haven't began with the story of which we'll start inshallah next time. But the introduction had a couple of points. I praised Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the glorious book that we have within it, that He sent to us, that we have the surah within. The book that brought a very clear, non-crooked way of life. It brought good news to those who do good, and it brought warnings to those who didn't. It gave us the nature of who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, and it stated it clearly. It told us that our point here is to do da'wah, but to a certain extent, and then we don't go beyond it. Understanding that at the end of the day, this is the deal. This is life. This is earth. Do what you will. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing you. And then, just like it all began, it will all end as well. This is the introduction of Surat AlKahf, and you will see, I will make the connections of that introduction to all the stories in the surah as we go along. Inshallah, you'll see that everything in the introduction was connected to a point that exists within the surah that is very much under the theme or the umbrella of the concept that Surat AlKahf is telling us how to build. This is how we build, this is how we make the progress. This is how you start today with someone with no ideas, with very little money, with no knowledge, right? It works for the youth. Simple ideas, not too much wealth, not too much knowledge, not too much power. You want to move out of that? You want to move towards something that is much better, much bigger, much more beneficial, then you take these steps properly. I hope that this was beneficial. Inshallah, we will continue next Sunday after Salat al-Maghrib. Subhanakallah bihamdik, shukran la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi.